Bracketed words. This podcast is at the advanced level. It requires a solid knowledge of Accordance Bible software, but no knowledge of Hebrew or of Greek. Today's podcast is at the advanced level, not because its techniques are so difficult, but because it deals with some of the minutiae of working with electronic text. This means a solid working knowledge of accordance, but it also means an intimate knowledge of the text and the way it's presented. That includes editorial marks like bracketed words. Overview. Accordance has 3 different possible search conditions. We can add any of them by clicking the plus sign to the right of the search entry box. We can then select the search condition we want by using this drop-down menu. Our focus today is just on one of them, bracketed words. Brackets generally refers to square brackets, not parentheses. This menu allows us to include them in our search, ignore them, which means omit them from the search, or just search exclusively for words in brackets. Why is this search condition so important? Let's take a look at brackets and how editors commonly use them. In biblical studies, as in other kinds of literature, editors often use different kinds of brackets when they edit texts. These can include square brackets, half brackets, both upper halves or less commonly lower halves, curly brackets, sometimes called braces, angle brackets, double angle brackets, and parentheses. This last one is not technically an editorial bracket, as writers also use parentheses for additions that provide sense in English. However, since some editors also use them in transcriptions, we'll include them in this list. Editors and texts vary in how they use these brackets, though the SBL Handbook of Style has tried to bring some uniformity to the discipline. Here is its suggested use of brackets when transcribing ancient texts. It's found in the current handbook, section 5.9, which is available in Accordance as a resource. Square brackets should be used to indicate reconstructed texts, or with ellipses, gaps in the text. Half brackets should be used for damaged but recognizable characters, signs, or sequences. Curly brackets in Hebrew indicate a letter erased by the scribe, who then left the space blank, while in English transliteration it indicates an alternate word suggested by a scribe. Angle brackets in cuneiform transliteration indicate signs inadvertently omitted by a scribe. Double angle brackets are to be used to indicate errant scribal insertion. Ignore the enclosed signs. And parentheses, for transcriptions when within square brackets, enclose signs restored from a duplicate text. Needless to say, but I will, editors may not follow these guidelines, so the section concludes with an appeal to all editors to explain their system in the front matter of their texts. However, Accordance texts have no front matter, so where do we go for information? The Accordance Read Mes, perhaps our most neglected resource. Here's a partial list of our Accordance Read Mes. Notice that Read Me is short for Read Me First. Alas, few of our customers do so, and many never do. Still, if you're wondering what the source of a text is or how it's been edited, this is the first place to go. Let's use this one on the Dead Sea Scrolls Bible as an example. A little scrolling, and sure enough, here's Dr. Marty Abeg's explanation of his bracket symbol system. In some cases, we place the front matter of text at the beginning of their apparatus, as is the case for both NA28 and UBS 5. This side-by-side view has the NA28 on the left, the USB on the right, both open to their explanation of brackets. The front matter is also in the apparatus of BHS and BHQ, though in this case I've opened both to the symbols in their critical apparatus. Commonly used Bibles and texts. First, let's consider the issue of the Ketiv Qere in the Hebrew Bible. The Masoretes were the people responsible for standardizing and focalizing the Hebrew Bible. They were unwilling to alter the Hebrew consonantal text, which they considered sacred. Instead, they corrected the text in the margin, providing what they considered the better reading. Here's a photograph of the print version of the Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia. Let's look at Genesis 8:17. The Ketiv here is Hotse. It is what is written. The Qere is in the outside margin. It is what is to be read. This Qere changes the vav to a yod. Now, the information is here, but the Qere is so small it's hard to read and unvocalized, which is often an issue for those learning Hebrew. Now, let's see this text and a number of other Hebrew Bibles in accordance, as different electronic texts each handle this issue in their own way. Here are 4 Hebrew texts in accordance. I've searched exclusively for bracketed words in the Hebrew Bible, HMT W4. From left to right, the texts are the Hebrew Bible, that's HMT W4, BHS, the ETCBC Hebrew Bible, and BHQ. Each of these texts handles the Ketiv Qere issue a bit differently. The text on the left is Accordance as Standard, HMT W4, which comes without an apparatus. It includes the Ketiv, followed immediately by the Qere in square brackets. Both are vocalized. This method makes it easy to read the text and easy to find all instances of a word, including both classes of words. However, those doing statistical analysis need to be aware that accordance counts both words, unless we add the search condition, exclude bracketed words. The next column to the right is GBS's BHS. It includes only the Ketiv in the text. However, it includes more information in the apparatus in many cases, generally including the Qere. Accordance's ETCBC text follows the pattern of its HMT W4, mostly. It includes both the Ketiv and the Qere in brackets, with the same advantages and disadvantages we mentioned earlier. However, the Ketiv is not vocalized, only the Qere is. Finally, the BHQ, far right, includes only the Ketiv, but provides very complete information in its apparatus, as well as its several sets of notes. Note that the BHQ is still incomplete, though what is finished is absolutely worth considering for purchase. To summarize then, Accordance provides a variety of Hebrew texts from which we can choose. Each has its advantages and disadvantages, but we must be aware of how our particular text handles issues like these, particularly if we're going to statistically analyze our search results. So what about the Greek New Testament? Here's a screenshot of 5 of Accordance's eclectic GNTs, arranged in parallel panes. Once again, I've searched exclusively for bracketed words, this time in the NA28T. I also turned Compare Texts on, so we can see the differences between them clearly. Yes, I set my preference to multiple texts. Note that the NA28T, with and without sigla, and the UBS5 all have brackets around chi. As a reminder, here's an explanation of what these brackets mean. The editors are not completely certain the word should be part of the text. This is a different use of brackets than the one in the Hebrew Bibles. The NA28 with sigla notes that the word is a variant and provides manuscript evidence. However, the variant is not significant enough to appear in the UBS5's apparatus, though it does retain the brackets in the body of the text. The Tyndale House Greek New Testament chose to drop the brackets. Its apparatus doesn't note the variant either. Tischendorf drops the word entirely, as does Westcott Hort, though Tischendorf's apparatus includes the variant. Once again, each text has some advantages and disadvantages. To use each one to its best effect, we have to become familiar with how it identifies variants and how it uses brackets. Here's a side-by-side comparison of Accordance's 3 Septuagints, with Compare Text turned on. The only one of them that uses brackets regularly is Sweet, which is at heart a diplomatic edition of Vaticanus. Where Vaticanus is missing text, the lacunae are filled from Alexandrinus, if available. In those rare instances where words are absent from both, the next most important uncial manuscript supplies the missing words. Brackets in Sweet indicate those textual reconstructions. Accordance users are most likely to encounter this version of the Septuagint as the Old Testament portion of Accordance's whole Greek Bible. The king of all bracketed texts, in my opinion, has to be the many biblical passages in the various Dead Sea Scrolls. The scrolls are often in bad repair, thus having many lacunae. However, We have a standard text against which to compare them, making editorial conjecture and even reconstruction possible. This search for all bracketed words shows just how few letters are sometimes recognizable in a verse. Note all the various kinds of brackets used in this text. Reconstructions, which form the bulk of these passages, are in red. Recognizable letters are in black. Obviously, those who work with the Dead Sea Scrolls must be particularly aware of brackets and careful not to draw conclusions based on editorial reconstructions. Our final example is modern English translations. They also use brackets, generally to identify text that the editors believe is old but probably not original. Here are 6 modern translations. With the exception of the ESV, far left, they are arranged roughly by publication date, with the most recent on the right. The bottom row has the notes from each translation. They are all open to the longer ending of Mark, which scholars generally believe to be a very early addition to the Gospel. Among these texts, only the NKJV ignores the issue entirely. All of the rest alert their readers to the issue in their notes, and all but the NIV put the passage in brackets. Statistical analysis. Statistical analysis deals with the number of times a word appears in a text, total hits, often as a function of the number of words in each book or chapter, average hits. This technique provides insight into the relative frequency of a word and its distribution among various authors or books. Accordance makes a variety of analytics available for any search. Whether or not we choose to include bracketed words in our searches may dramatically affect our analytics. Here are 2 examples. The first is from the HTM W4, where we've searched for hachot. This table shows the number of times the word appears in the Hebrew Bible. It lists 5 hits in Job, but 2 of them are Ketiv, Qere pairs. That unfairly weights the number of hits in Job, which should only be 3. We can eliminate this issue by adding a search condition that excludes bracketed words. The second example is from the Greek New Testament. It returns to the issue of the longer ending of Mark. The upper zone shows a search for all words in Mark, which includes bracketed words. The result, 11,314 words, 100%. The second search also searches for all the words in Mark, but this time excludes the words in brackets. It finds only 11,234 words, 90 fewer words. However, Accordance's weighting still includes bracketed words, which is why the result is not 100%, but 99.3%. There are studies where this small difference could be critical. So, what should we do about bracketed words? I'd like to offer 3 suggestions. First, let's make informed choices about texts, searches, and search conditions. Next, let's be sure to record those choices as part of our research. And finally, let me encourage everyone to document them in our publications. For instance, here's a sample footnote for a scholarly article. Statistics derived from Accordance Bible Software, version 12.2.2, Hebrew Masoretic Text with Westminster Hebrew Morphology, HMT W4, version 1.8, bracketed words excluded. Careful attention to this sort of fine detail is characteristic of excellent scholarship. It builds trust among readers, especially should they try to duplicate the results. Interested in how a different text may use brackets, or information on another kind of resource? Use Accordance's research to check the Read Mes. Here's how I did it. I made a custom My Group with just a single resource in it, Accordance Module Info, which is the collection of all the latest Read Mes in Accordance. It's in every Accordance library, so look for it in yours. I opened a Research tab and used the English data field to search it for every mention of brackets. Accordance searched all the relevant fields and found 94 total hits. As I pass my cursor over each hit, the module name and the section appear. If we want to open the Read Me to that place, we just click. For a more complete set of resources, consider adding the various apparatus to this folder. I'll conclude with just one more tip. We can search or research for any single character in accordance by typing a period, then the character. That includes a square bracket, as this sample search illustrates. We at Accordance are honored to be your choice for Bible study software. We work hard to make sure you have the very best in resources, and even harder to make sure you understand how to use them to their fullest. This has been Dr. J for Accordance Bible Software. Thank you for watching this episode of Lighting the Lamp.